Yeah, but what if there were two grizzly bears?
Yeah, that would double your chances of being mauled. That's literally all it would do.
Right, but does that change the odds for you at all?
No, it would just I it was never a question of whether I would do that in the first place.
All right, fine. All right. Anyway, hello everyone. Welcome. This is the From A to B presented by Awesemo.com. The Awesemo.com From A to B show. We're working on this. I'm Andrew Barron. I am often called Hot Magic. I am joined by Ben Raza. He is often called Jazz Raz, and we are going to have a show for you on this here YouTube channel and this Twitch stream and Periscope probably too. I believe we're doing it all. This is our new show. We are previously from FanVice, and we are here for your entertainment and DFS needs. Ben, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. It's been a wild couple weeks. We were in Vegas together, so it's good to get back to the old seeing you through the webcam style. But yeah, no, things are good. Excited for the new show. We're obviously going to talk about what we plan to do with it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's gonna be cool. We're gonna be doing 4, 5, 6 shows a week, and yeah, we'll get into a lot of that. But I imagine there's at least a couple new people. Maybe 4 to 6. I don't know. What do you put the over under? Under, yeah. All right, fair enough. Well, why don't you talk about give them the 30 seconds about who you are, buddy?
Yeah. So, play DFS full time, golf preferably, my best sport. But now, one of the surprises when we're in Vegas, college football is back. So with the NFL and that coming around, it's going to be busy. The only sport I am not an MLB guy, but we have plenty of them over here, which is nice. So yeah, I mean, really like golf. It basically goes year round, so you always have that to keep you busy. And now with football coming back, that will be the other sport that I'll certainly be focused on.
Indeed. We got a person. Jeff Jacoby says, "What's up, guys? What's up, Jeff? This is a thing. All right, cool. Yeah, man. I am with you. I am also not the biggest baseball guy. I do make baseball projections. That is kind of my thing. I also play DFS full time, and I made all the projections over at fanvice.com. I will be doing that at Awesemo. We also have Awesemo's personal rankings, and Josh, producer Josh, today also does his own rankings for a couple of sports. I play golf is one of my better sports. Was sort of, I think with both of us, that was our into the industry, just because there's a million MLB, NFL, NBA guys. But I personally know a lot more about the NBA, and I know football pretty well, quite well too. I mean, those are the two sports that those three are the sports I play the most. I got my master's in statistics, used to teach. And started doing this stuff because I really like it, and it's a lot of fun to sit around and look at spreadsheets in your underwear rather than go to a real job. You know what I mean?
Pants, yeah. No, it's true. That's one of the things. I mean, if you don't know us, you'll get to know us. That thing's pretty interesting. A lot of times we arrive at the same place, same conclusions, but our processes are really different. As Andrew talked about, really good with stats, projections. I do it a little differently, kind of atypical. I build by hand. That's one of the main differences. A little more feel, but obviously, certainly got to use numbers no matter what. But I do think that's an interesting thing. There's not as much overlap as you might think.
Yeah, it is wild on golf how often we are on 18 of the same 20 plays, but came at it from entirely different directions.
Wildly different. Yeah.
It works though. I mean, we both, have won quite a bit of money in our days playing PGA DFS. Oh, we're burying the lead. We should promo with this, right? You came in second, or you T2'd, tied for second in the golf final last weekend when we were on our way back from Vegas.
Yeah. My plane, every time I fly, literally every time I fly, it's insane. Like I flew Saturday and my team that was as good as you could run. It was like 35, 36 under for 6 guys. Then I got home Sunday and Keegan was a problem. But, when I woke up Sunday, obviously I had the lead and I figured, I wanted to win, of course. If you would have told me any other time, you're coming in second, that's a snap take, obviously. So really cool way to not end the golf season because it's not over, but I had a really good one early in the year, and to kind of get another one late was pretty cool. Right before football, obviously perfect timing.
Yeah. Yeah, you won the Thunderdome at the Masters earlier.
That was good.
Also some really funny things. Just random, is this serendipity? I don't know. Whatever. Synchronicity. Whatever. I'm gonna go with one of them, and we'll see. Maybe someone. We have a lot of people talking to us. Maybe one of them will correct me. The last year I was at home for a wedding. I am originally from New England. I live in Southern California now. I had gone home for a wedding, and you won the giant $33 or $44 tournament at the Dean and DeLuca. While I was at a wedding, and then this year I won that thing at the Dean and DeLuca, now the Fort Worth Invitational, when you were on the road for a wedding.
Yep. Really so somebody needs to get to a wedding next year at that tournament.
Yeah,
that's really
our buddy Tim, Fantasy Golf Man, who many of you will remember from our FanDuel show. We're sending him to a wedding next year.
Yes,
basically is what's going to happen. That is the plan. Okay, do you want to talk about? Should we talk about what we're going to do with this show first, or recap the Vegas trip?
Let's recap the Vegas trip. That'll be quick. It's not that much to say.
Well, it's just whether or not you prefer Mississippi Stud or Let It Ride.
That's right. We are now in the exclusive club of probably 10 people who know how to play Mississippi Stud.
It's true.
Don't play it. It's really bad. Just don't. That's what we learned. Expensive game. But no, Vegas was obviously a lot of fun. Not the best DFS state, as we all know. It was kind of annoying. We were in California, had to set our lineups there and whatnot. So it was fun. It was hot. Now we're back in business. But it's always fun to get a little degenerate gambling in there.
Oh, absolutely. 3-card poker, also degenerate game. But I have a soft spot for it because after we went out to a pretty expensive dinner our last night, I lost credit card roulette, which was tough. There were 4 of us. Not that exciting to do that. And then went on some, you and May went to bed because you're responsible humans, and me and your best friend Jake are made for each other.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah, we're the type that will, get each other going, and we stayed up until 7 a.m. playing 3-card poker, and I went on to heater to end all heaters, made back more than I lost at credit card roulette at dinner. And then we proceeded to blow almost all of that money on roulette spins at like 7 a.m. and then had to leave at 11. So, that's how a Vegas trip is supposed to end, right? You're like all groggy. You're not having a good time. It's always sad. I'd never been before, but I feel like I got the full experience.
Yeah, no, we'll certainly be going back. It was great. I actually came home up money, which is shocking.
That's not shocking, Ben. That's what happens to you every single time.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. Part of that was from the Del Mar. I hit a pick 5 right before we got to Vegas, which is also great.
People that don't know us, Knowledge Storage being an example, who wants to know, who are you guys? Where's Jake and Josh? Jake and Josh are around. They'll still be.
Don't worry, we're not replacing anyone.
Yeah, exactly. Josh is actually behind the glass right now because we couldn't figure out how to produce the show ourselves yet. We're gonna get there. But Ben runs better than anyone. That is his claim to fame. And we went to the track on Sunday in San Diego. I live in LA. Jake lives in San Diego. Our buddy Deadlift Shrimp was in town because his mom was in the FanDuel baseball qualifier. Another story altogether. Took me a while to find you guys because it's a giant. A real racetrack is an enormous thing, by the way. I had never been to a real racetrack. And when I found you guys, not 3 minutes later, you hit the 5th leg of your pick 5 for 15 grand. So your trip was paid for.
Yeah, it was. And the last thing I'll say about that, after the first leg of the pick 5, we lost the ticket, which I've been to racetracks thousands of times. I've never lost a ticket in my life. Left it at the teller, and we went back, and she had it, and she gave it back to us, and then we hit it. So that was just very fortunate on so many levels. I'll probably never play a pick 5 again. That was the first time I've ever played a pick 5 in my life.
Well, it worked out.
It did. It was quite useful.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Okay. Let's get to some business, shall we? We got to
Sure.
talk about what our plans are for this show. So, this is not this is more of an intro show than anything else. We'll hit on a couple of things, but overall, we are, we'll probably talk golf for 20 minutes towards the end of this. But in general, we have plans to try and make this show a little bit different. I mean, certainly different from our older shows. Tuesdays and Wednesday nights, which were our traditional, like every week shows. We had Tuesday with Tim and then Wednesday night with Carl and Perry. We will plan on continuing to do those shows, at least the two of us. And we're hoping to have Tim on the Tuesday thing. I think it's like the Aaron Donald signing at this point. The agents are working out the details.
Yeah.
But we're close. So that is Tuesday and Wednesday night. And then do you want to talk a little bit about what maybe some of our other plans are?
Sure. Yeah. So like you said, we're going to try to make the show fun because we're going to be on every day. And if we just keep it, I don't want to do that. I'm sure no one listening wants to hear us just blabber for 5 days straight about golf. That's just not what we're going to do. Yeah. It's not happening. So we're going to, depending on where we're at in certain things, we're going to kind of take a temperature of the industry as a whole. Thursday nights or Thursday afternoons, probably talk a lot of football, college football too, for sure. Tuesday, Andrew's just talking about, it'll be golf focused. Mondays, I think that, we want to talk kind of the weekend review, the weekend, what's been happening with NFL and whatnot, maybe a little Monday night showdown. We're just going to kind of go with what we think people want to talk about. We want ideas. We're definitely thinking of some different segments, maybe some Q&A in there. I would be lying if I didn't mention this. I'm definitely occasionally going to pose some random scenario type questions of just weird, bizarre things. And we'll talk about that for a couple minutes here and there. But on the whole,
prop bets on like what our friends will do or like what would happen if X did Y. Probably going to be a large contingent of the show.
Yeah, I like to gamble on things you probably shouldn't gamble on. So definitely want to keep it interesting, keep it different. And then just like I said, depending on which day of the week it is and what sports we have for given slates, we're going to talk about them. But we do hope to have, like, for example, tonight, 9:00, we have the golf show before lock. That's going to be, who are we playing? How are we creating our lineups? Very specific to that given slate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that one generally, just for those who aren't familiar, our Tuesday shows were that was always the free pod where we kind of did the big overview of like, this is what the course is, these are the players, this is who we like. And then by Wednesday night, it initially started just because, I mean, a lot of it was the weather. The weather angle would often change. That hasn't been the case as much this year, but last year when we started it, that was a big part of it. But really, we tend to get into a lot of like our process, like who we're on, because on Tuesday morning, we don't really know. We haven't built yet. We don't know what our exposures are. We don't know what the chalk is, where to go from it. But by Wednesday night, usually it's like, all right, this is really where we're narrowing in on. And then we generally have an audience segment. Our dear friend FK Coolers often provides us with a list of egregious golfers to choose from and just a bunch of really crappy players and which ones are good and which ones are bad. At this point in the season, there aren't really, I mean, Tom Hoagie is the only bad golfer left pretty much. I mean, truly bad. Or Ted Potter, I guess, but
there's some bad ones towards the, but yeah, I get, it's not super extreme, like create a player style.
Yeah. I misspoke. Tom Hoagie was the only one where I was like, why the hell is this guy still here? Because the other truly bad players like Michael Kim and Patton Kazire and all of that, like they won a tournament.
Mm-hmm. It's true. We had a couple Mississippi stud comments in the chat. That is impressive. We got some Mississippi stud players. That's the most important thing.
Great work, Zach.
I like it. And yeah, also, Andrew's touching. We're going to touch upon golf. We're going to take a little time here. I'm going to throw out some college football stuff because I am, even though I'm in New York, I went to Connecticut like a responsible human so I could play. I'm going to be ready to go tonight. So we got a little
slate. Battle of the Big Sky, or is this Ohio Valley Cup? What's Eastern Kentucky A&M? Or
we've got some. There are some fake schools on this slate. Northwestern State, which is something. Weber State. Yeah, there's some non D1 teams in there, which
What state is Northwestern State?
I think it's Louisiana. I
True.
don't know though. They're the Demons, I can tell you that much.
Of course you can.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, this is going to be. Do you want to talk about college football right now? You want to put it to the end? What do you think?
You're welcome to. I'm gonna lay back and chill out. I know I am planning on learning this year a little more.
Yeah.
But I've just never followed college sports. I'm a massive, massive NBA and NFL fan. And I just never got into any of those dudes until they got to the show. So, I mean, I couldn't tell you. I know you love Josh Allen.
Yeah, Wyoming.
Looks a little too much like Josh Freeman to me so far, but we'll see what happens there.
He's going to be good. Anyway, speaking of Wyoming, here's a segue for you. They just smoked New Mexico State, who is on this slate. Minnesota's going to run it down their throat. That running back is going to be good. It's the first week. I really think that I'm going to keep it really general. It's more about not making mistakes. Try to get guys that you feel pretty secure about in terms of volume, in terms of game script. Some of these games are going to get out of hand. Texas A&M, for example, Oklahoma State's another one. They're going to score, but how much of the production is going to be dispersed? Obviously, I don't know. If you think those teams can muster up a couple touchdowns on the other end, maybe they keep it closer. For me, I think like most people, the UCF Connecticut game could stay somewhat reasonable. That's a good game to target. I think Tulane is going to put up more than a fight tonight. I think they're going to win. So I'm targeting them a little more than I think most people would. Other than that, I'm trying to mix and match with a guy here or there. It's just when you have a situation where you're playing a DAA school, these games can get out of hand. And if you catch unlucky breaks, like there's defensive touchdowns, a lot of these guys aren't going to see the field in the second half. So that's really my advice. Couple guys.
You don't play a defense in DFS college football, right?
Nope. And they have an interesting thing. This is not how it was. There's a super flex, so you can take another quarterback. I think maybe you did used to have to take two quarterbacks anyway. I don't really remember. So, roster construction wise, you definitely have some options. Just look at depth charts. It's early in the year. There are some min wide receivers that, are going to see the field for sure. So I think that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Are there any min wide receivers in particular you're targeting?
So there's a Trey Nixon who's on UCF. I think is a guy that there's a reason why I've heard his name elsewhere. He's definitely going to see the field, but it's another one of these situations, just like any DFS sport. At what percentage does that become? I'll roll the dice and hope he gets zero, because that's also possible. Other than that, I haven't built just yet. After the show, that's what I'll be doing. I'm going to try not to dip super low. I think there's enough value at running backs that you can go to, in the mid 4s, 5s, where you can kind of keep it somewhat balanced. I'm not paying up for Mackenzie Milton. And if you don't do that, I don't know how low you need to go. If I did take him, or if I do want a couple, just large field tournament teams, then I'm more apt to pair him with his min price receiver and just hope that they connect, obviously.
Okay.
We're going to get you into it. It's good. Saturday is going to be a wild one.
Yeah, it's fall, man. I don't expect to have a life anytime soon, so might as well.
I don't have a life, so it doesn't. Yeah, it coincides with my normal schedule.
Yeah. Well, I'm single again, so I need to have somewhat of a life.
Yeah, you should have a nice balance.
It hasn't gone. I've not done well with the work-life balance and with the DFS thing. It's great though. It's what we do.
It's just last thing I say about college football. It's just, again, early in the year, you're getting teams. Central Connecticut State, I don't know one thing about them. You don't need to know about them because they don't play D1. They just happen to be on a slate. That's the only time you're going to see them. Once you get into normal people matchups, it'll become a little easier. And it's going to be harder in general. I mean, I know everyone has fond memories, including me, of college football. It's not going to be like it was, most likely. Everybody's gotten a lot better. So I'm hoping I'll have the same success I did, but I certainly think it's going to be a lot harder.
Oh, I would imagine so. Everything, I mean, I don't know. I think I am one of the better NBA DFS players out there. I straight up stopped playing cash last year just because it just became with the rake, it became unbeatable. And like when news broke, I just found myself trying to win a 1v1 or a 2v2 against Dink and Makasupa every night. And like, I'm not doing that 55+% of the time. Like it just became not worth it. So it's a really, they're tough games. I think everything in general has sort of moved more towards GPPs. I think we here at awesemo.com use, are a lot of primarily GPP players. That is certainly where the edge is now, just because part of what happens when a sport becomes more and more efficient is that ownership becomes more and more efficient, right? Everyone knows what the chalk is, and like it's becomes more about getting leverage and sort of making a decision tree on like what is the probability that this 40% owned dude pays off. And that's really where where most of this stuff is now. It's I hate to say it because projections are my stock and trade, but it is less about the projection than it is the leverage. And you can use the projection to find whether or not you think something, it's different from if there's a 3K running back that's going to get 22 touches. Like you can't fade that even at 60-70%, but there are other situations, blah, 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 blah. I mean, this is not new to anyone, but the Mike Trouts of the world go over 4 all the time. We all are familiar with that. So, but I think that's even more of an optimal strategy these days. So we talk a lot about GPPs, and we play some cash in most sports, but definitely more about the GPPs these days. Question from the chat from Eric S. Wanted to know what shows and features are coming over from FanVice. We don't know. I mean, we can't say everything, but we can tell you what we do know, which is that we have you and me, Laffy, Adam, Fast Eddie, Emac, and Dan are all involved. So of that crew, we have a lot of you and me, and then Laffy and Adam definitely have a daily show. I believe Eddie is going to be doing a daily show when NBA starts too. And then there's been some talk. So Laffy and Adam will do essentially what the deeper dive was for baseball and then often for basketball. And there's been some talk, we're still brainstorming. It's been a pretty intense sort of merger period. Just a lot of balls in the air, especially with football, with NFL starting next week. And it's a lot of things to get ready for. But we've talked a little bit about switching some stuff around, where we mix and match a little bit at least once a week. But, you and I will be doing at least 4 shows a week together for the foreseeable future. And then you'll get your typical deeper dive kind of deal that will lead into Jake and Josh's pre-lock show. Eddie may do some post-lock shows sometimes. We'll have earlier stuff, but as far as the specific FanVice stuff, we know the people that have come over, and I'm excited to work with everyone. I'm really excited about this place. Like I think that there are a lot of there's more resources here in a lot of ways, and like a lot of like we were just a little bit short staffed on the tech side at FanVice for a lot of things. So we have made some pretty big improvements already. I think I can push out an MLB update like once a lineup comes out in about 2 minutes, which used to be more of like a 12-minute process. So I think a lot of that stuff we're going to be able to get done faster. And it's, for me personally, I'm really excited about it because I've basically been in projection hell for the last year. And it's going to become, my process is going to become a lot more automated. I've been working with Eddie Lai, who's 1-800-EDDIE, who's the guy behind the scenes here, the web dev and programmer dude, and he's been awesome to work with, and he's really helped me out a lot. He's really, really making things work faster on my end, so I should have more time to dick around and talk about silly stuff with all you guys.
Obviously, we're obviously going to be adding more to what we've been doing. At FanVice, we had a nice thing going. We're trying to expand upon that. We're trying to take the good stuff from there and implement it here with more resources. I think it's a good time to talk about. So, last year when Andrew took over the projections, he invented thing called Rover, kind of a custom stat that we were using. He uses it, people like it. We had some others, and we didn't roll them out ultimately. So I think that a lot of this time is going to be implementing new things, different things that you don't really see elsewhere for different types of sports, not just golf. I certainly won't be doing that. I'll be using it. But people like, Andrew, now that a lot of these things are more streamlined, are going to be really cool. If you want to just talk about Rover, just because that's one that we have out there already, and some people
Oh,
might
sure.
not be familiar with it.
Yeah, so Rover, and this comes more from my statistics background. I was a statistics professor, and I think the biggest thing that people have trouble with in DFS is, I mean, not saying it because everyone loves to scream variance, right? Like I was just variance away from winning this tournament. Variance is a number though, and like we can actually quantify it, and that's very usable. And we know this, right? Like we tend to gravitate more towards that, right? In tournaments in baseball, you're playing home run hitters. Why are you playing home run hitters? Because they have greater variance in their game. Their ceiling is higher. That also leads to, like I played Joey Gallo when he's batting eighth every single tournament. Like I'm just going to do it. And that leads to a lot of, 0 for 4 with a couple of strikeouts situations. It's not great. But he has this reasonable upside, and you can actually calculate the variance, which is just the square of the standard deviation, blah 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 blah. Not to get too into that, but I created a golf metric that actually measures the variance of a player in their round to round, and I just rescale it every week. So if you go to my projections on awesomeo.com, there the furthest right column is this thing called Rover, which stands for weighted round variance, and it's just a measure of the round to round variance in a golfer's game. It's weighted more to count recent stuff more than last year and the year before, and blah 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 blah. But every week it rescales from 0 to 100. So the higher someone's Rover is, the more all over the place their game can be. Most really good players are going to have pretty high Rovers anyway. Not all. Like the Paul Casey, Henrik Stenson types are generally going to have lower Rovers. They're pretty consistent. Casey's has been creeping up a little bit lately.
Not for good things.
Yeah, not for good things. But in general, higher Rover means higher variance. In a lot of ways, that means higher upside, but not necessarily. Like there's trash players that just will go out and shoot. If you shoot 70, 78, 70, 78, that's the same Rover as if you shoot 62, 70, 62, 70. So it's to be noted that it has nothing. The big thing here, it has absolutely nothing to do with skill, right? Yep. The projection is really talking about, there's some stuff in there to talk about course fit, but the projection is basically their skill. The Rover is how wide of a range of outcomes there is around that skill. So I think what people sometimes mistake it for is they say, okay, well, lower Rover means more consistent, therefore that's what I want for cash. It can work that way. Paul Casey, is the perfect example. He's very low Rover and is almost always a great cash play. He's cheap in price because he has a smaller range of outcomes, right? So his Vegas odds are lower because he doesn't have the high ceiling and doesn't win as often. But in a vacuum, like you can be consistently bad. So there are guys with 10 Rovers that just stink and you don't want to play them at all. So it's not necessarily that cash means lower Rover and tournaments means higher. Rover is completely independent of skill. It's just a question of like how all over the place some guy is. And you still want upside in cash, right? Like we've just been talking about how much tougher all the games are, how much more information everyone has. So just be careful about going all low Rover for cash or high Rover for tournaments. And most importantly, know that it is completely independent of skill.
Yeah. Rover's something we're obviously, especially on the Wednesday night show, we will reference it. Andrew more than me because he fully understands it, but he, it's definitely useful.
More than me because you have to ask me a question. I mean, it's more helpful if you have a question.
Absolutely. No, and I always do about it because it's a great thing to use in addition to other things. You can't use Rover as a standalone because if you don't know who these golfers are and how good they are, you're going to have problems. But that's something we definitely incorporate on the Wednesday night show, which is, purely how we're building cash teams, how we're building tourney teams, how we went about 3-max, things like that. So yeah, that is something though, just to bring it back. I think you're going to see tools like that for other sports rolled out once everything's settled down here. And that's exciting. I think there's so much information out there. Try to be a little different, try to get things that, you can use and maybe differentiate. Because identifying the optimal plays as things get better is only part of the process. You need to know at what point, even if you're playing a slightly less optimal guy, is it worth it? Well, yeah, if he's 1/10 the ownership, clearly it is worth it.
Right. Well, that makes him optimal, right? Optimal is not just projection. It's like
not the raw points. Yeah,
right. Exactly. It's the expected value based on ownership and projection. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but yeah. And we both play a fair amount of golf cash, and that is something where you just ignore ownership. It just doesn't matter. It's not good or bad. It doesn't mean play the chalk either. You know what I mean? I think that's something people sort of struggle with sometimes. Is they just like jam in every guy that's going to be 30% owned into their cash teams. And like, if a guy's a bad play and he's 30% owned, like that doesn't mean you should play him. And if a guy's a good play and he's 2% owned, that doesn't mean you should be afraid to play him in cash. Because if that guy does well, then you just swept, you know?
You just want to be aware. I think, I definitely am improving in cash. Not my forte by any stretch.
You play a shitload, though.
I do it to lower the variance, just because it's if you don't, it gets a little too rocky if you're playing high stakes. But I think the important thing with cash, just in general, is that ownership shouldn't be a deterrent. If you like the chalky play, you can use him easier than in a tournament where a little different situation. But totally agree, and I think we both tend to be a little more aggressive in general on the whole in cash, and even in tournaments, I'm pretty aggressive in fading guys. Just we'll get into our styles and whatnot. But for people who don't know us, I'm more apt to get smoked. I don't try to do that, obviously, but I don't have a problem full fading a very heavily owned guy where a lot of other people take positions of people, which is, I do that too, of course. It's not all or nothing, but I do think on the whole, we do tend to be a little aggressive in how we build.
Yeah, I think both of us are certainly leaning more towards the aggressive side. We're both kind of searching for those lower owned players, especially the way the tournaments are now as
super top heavy.
Is,
yeah,
and taking some hits. They still want to offer these big prizes, and the stupid millionaire maker at the PGA Championship was like $2.75 million to first place. Like that's gross.
In Slack, we obviously always talk about this stuff. I don't think there's anything wrong with playing that. You just want to be aware of what you're doing. Yeah. I play it. It's probably minus EV, but you know what? That's fine. I'm aware of the top heavy nature of it, and you gotta hope that you eventually hit something. That's the only way you can really come out ahead. You try to tread water for as long as you can, take the small losses, and then try to hit something really good, because the way it's structured, it's just not feasible to grind those type of tournaments out.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I get a lot of people talk about, well, in the Millie Maker, there's way more fish, which is absolutely true. It's probably more plus EV in some way. I mean, the rake is bad, so that doesn't help, but it's possibly higher EV to play the Millie. It's just a question of there's 20 millionaire makers a year. Like, you're not ever going to be able to play enough to realize your value. Like, your odds of actually ever winning, if you played infinite Millie makers, potentially it's higher.
500. Like, I'm not doing that with the way I eat.
If there's 20 a year. But yeah, know what you're saying.
Come on now. But yeah, no, I agree with that. It's not, I guess that's not the right way I worded it, but it's just most likely you're not going to be realizing that, and you just need to hit one. You got to get lucky. It's Powerball-esque. There's ways to play that, and what I know for me, I can only speak for myself. What I try to do is find other games that I think are, less rocky and kind of build up, so I can take those shots and not just drain the old bankroll. That way, if you keep it afloat and you're getting 50 entries into that every week, or even a handful, well, then you kind of sit on it, and then hopefully once a year, one of those turns into a nice return for you.
Yep, totally agree. Question from the chat. Stephen Carasati wanted to know, can you provide a rover example using Scott Stallings?
Your boy.
Scotty. So Scott Stallings has 2 strikes against him. 1, he's bad, and 2, he has a low rover. So in that case, I just would avoid. I mean, I'm comfortable avoiding him completely. I don't.
What is his rover? Do you have it?
It's 29 in this field. And again, rover changes week to week because I rescale it from 0 to 100. Austin Cook is the 0 this week. Ian Poulter is the 100. It's Ian Poulter or Tommy Fleetwood that's the 100 every single week, by the way.
Which I find interesting because Fleetwood, I get it because I see him go nuclear. That's one of the reasons I really like the stat. Poulter's a guy that
First round leader bet.
Poulter's a guy that I honestly would have thought is more in the Casey Stenson mold, and the data shows that's not exactly the case. So Scott Stallings,
he'll be sub 1% owned if you want to get frisky, but I don't think Scott Stallings is not someone you want to play in a real field. This is something we talk about often too. So familiar themes, but for those not familiar with us, there's a big difference in where you're playing a guy. Like some of these dudes, like the Abraham Answers of the world, that guy's still around, but he's not. I don't see him competing in a field with this much talent. We're at the end of the year. It's nothing but straight studs this week. Aaron Wise hung around last week. That was pretty shocking, but he did it. But in general, you want to kind of avoid the wackier plays, the younger guys, the sort of beat up, because those guys, especially the ones off the web, they beat up on easy courses. And when we get to these tougher fields and usually tougher courses, this course this week is not that bad. Well, hey, good segue. We should probably talk about golf for a couple minutes.
Yeah, we'll start talking. I think just the guy that comes to mind for me is Joel Dahmen. He's the flat min this week, and that does make him somewhat appealing. You look at his stats and you're like, oh my God, this guy, yeah, but he's been doing it against not fields like this.
Doesn't count.
This is a different animal. So you just want to make sure the data that you're looking at is, a reflection of what you're going to see this week. Andrew was just talking about, we joke Mackenzie Hughes is the guy. He just murders really easy courses. So say he gets 3 weeks and he's going low, and then he goes to a much tougher venue. You look at your data and you're like, wow, this guy's rolling. Well, yeah, but is that going to translate on a longer course where par is better than, getting 4 streaks and 4 under 70 bonuses? So this isn't going to be overly hard. TPC Boston is where they're going. I think that driving distance is going to help a little. I'm not saying it's just straight bombers, but I don't see that much trouble lurking off the tee. And in general, I don't see this as a scramble fest. Do you? I'm assuming you don't.
No, they're pretty wide fairways.
Generous.
But the rough is really long. I think it has the correlation to driving accuracy is higher than the correlation to driving distance here. Because you can't actually, if you miss them, you're in deep trouble. So just got to be careful about that. But I know what you're saying. Yeah, I missed their driving distance. That's how I sort of got into this game. I just find that people have sort of the pendulum has swung too far with that at this point. So it's certainly going to help. You'd rather have a 140-yard approach shot than a 170-yard approach shot.
I'm interested to see if you asked guys, would they rather be, some of these are longer iron shots here. Would you rather be in the rough, maybe in that first cut with a smaller iron or even a wedge, or, in the fairway hitting a longer iron in? I don't know the answer to that, obviously, but I do think that you're going to see guys, Rahm comes to mind, who are really going to attack. He normally does. He doesn't really have an option. He just attacks even when he shouldn't. But I do think the real good drivers who aren't wild sprayers, total driving comes to mind. But, if you're hitting it that far, you're not going to be super accurate. But those guys who can really just murder off the tee, I'm giving certainly a boost to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to talk? Do you want to talk trash about DJ? You punk.
I'm not trying to rip on DJ. I will just say,
DJ. To people who don't know us, he hates.
It's
DJ.
Not true. I just like Rory a lot. The thing I will say about DJ, and I do find this annoying, is all I heard was if he didn't make 2 triple bogeys, he would just win. Well, yeah, that's great, but he did. No, that's like if Rory could putt or hit a wedge, he would win. He can't. That's just the way it is. I think DJ's great. He's besides.
DJ is not a guy who's typically going to hit 2 triples is more what I mean. Yeah, you're totally right. I think that's going to kill Abraham Answer this week. He's going to hit 2 triples at some point. hopefully for his owners, it's on the weekend. But
it's just always something with him, though. That's what I'm saying with DJ. It's like he just even on Saturday he was just not good. In these, he has the great thing about DJ, and for a DJ hater, I'll toot my own horn for a little bit. The 2 weeks when I had 100% of them at St. Jude, he ran away with that in small, easy fields where he just dismantles. He's the type of favorite that you want to load up on because the guy doesn't disappoint. But in these stronger events, I mean, it hasn't been as good as you would think from a guy with that kind. That's all I'm saying.
No, I know. And listen, at 11-6, I'm not dying to play him. I'm with you. I've mostly been short on him the last little bit too. I just part of my, when I first started playing a lot, my massive hot take was that DJ and Jason Day were much, much better players than Jordan Spieth, which sounded like a massive hot take at the time, and it was not. So
turns out Brooks is just better than everyone. But I think that with these guys, we've talked about this throughout the year. There's a handful of, 5 to 8 guys who kind of rotate depending on their current form up between, the low, like Rose is 9-3. He missed the cut last week. I could care less. That's ridiculous. The difference between him and Brooks and JT, all these guys, you can throw
3/4 of the people are going to make the cut this week, by the way.
Well, yeah, if you missed the cut this week, this is a very atypical golf tournament. There's 98 guys in the field, top 70 and ties get through. You could legit have 20 guys miss the cut. You have Tom Hoagie in the field, so now 19 guys.
You could legit have 15 guys miss the cut.
Yeah, that too. And there's no MDF, so it's going to be ridiculous in that sense. 6 of 6.
That's that Bummer missed the cut here 2 years ago when he hadn't missed the cut in 6 months or something like that. That was
that was like Rose last week.
The start of his run bad.
So 6 of 6 isn't going to do anything. You need it, of course. That's just step one of having a good week. This is like a hybrid non-cut. I don't like non-cuts. I really prefer to have cut carnage and have low 6 of 6. I think I can beat the field that way. Then I kind of just let the chips fall where they may. I don't like attacking pure scoring. I don't like guys who come in 30th, but they have the 9th most DraftKings points, like Tony Finau. But yeah, I think this week you just have
you're a fish.
Yeah, me and the other 3% of people who don't play him at this point. There's just so many guys up top, and I think the talent levels are somewhat bunched that I'll take these guys at discounts or with the ownership. I mean, Rahm is going to be polarizing this week. I'm not saying he's going to be low owned by any stretch.
I think he's going to be chalky.
Chalky, really?
I think he'll be one of the higher owned guys. Yeah, that's a really nice price tag on him. And people
even after burning everyone.
John Rahm, dude.
John Rahm, dude. Yeah. Well, if that's the case, see, for me, I don't think so. With Rose there, with Tiger, Hideki, there's just a lot of names to go around. Obviously, Adam Scott's going to be lower owned because he's in a weird price range for him. It's just, for me, finding that balance. I'm more willing to hold on probably too long to a fault with some of these guys. I mean, I played Spieth kind of throughout the year because his ownership was getting low enough where I still thought the ceiling was there. It wasn't working. It still really hasn't worked. He was all right last week. I'll probably go back a little here. I just have a hard time gravitating towards a guy up there who's 30%-ish when you can get guys at a third of that who I don't think are that much of more than a toss-up to beat them.
Wait, who did you say is going to be 30%?
No one. I was just saying in general.
Oh, yeah.
I think Rose is going to be wildly popular. He's one. The price tag is low enough where I mean, in cash, I'm obviously playing him. How much I get over on him, I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yep. It's also, this has been kind of a funny year where there hasn't been a big separation. Generally, there is the last few years we've had our sort of 3 or 4 guys that were way better than everyone else, and that hasn't been the case. There's just been kind of 10 dudes that are all awesome this year. So when one of them, we find this often, it's all right, great. If Justin Rose is $2,300 less than Dustin Johnson and probably similar ownership, I don't know. I imagine Rose will be a little more popular, so that's a bad example. But JT or something like that, who will be JT is going to be popular, and he's $2,000 more than Justin Rose, who's just as good of a player. Like, I'm definitely going with Rose there. And then a lot of these times, yeah, if there's a guy that's 30% owned and a guy that's 10% owned, I will certainly be way more likely to go overweight on the 10% owned guy if he's the same kind of player as the 30% owned guy, because it's amazing how fast people change their minds in golf, how quick it can run away.
Oh yeah, I remember. I mean, just to touch on that, Patrick Reed had a stretch where he was. I was, I was putting him in my articles, and people were not happy because he was just getting cut. He was awful. He was missing like at the pro. He was just horrendous, and then started to get a little form, won the Masters, and now like it's an afterthought of, oh, he's always been good. It's not true. Like,
yeah, I mean, he really struggled early this year.
He did, but it's just like it's a fine line between, that's an easy example. I can say, well, I held on and it paid off. There's plenty of guys where I've held on and it hasn't paid off, and turns out they've lost form or they're not the same player they were. It's just recent form is just one piece of the puzzle. Sometimes, even if they're not playing well, the price discount and the ownership discount is worth it to kind of stay on them because you think long term it's going to pay off.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather play with that strategy than ride, and whatever. Half the time you get screwed by this, but I'd rather do that than go after CT Pan Chalk Week or Joel Dahman Chalk Week, or who was the other like total scrub that
Putnam,
yeah. Like Andrew Putnam Chalk Week. Just not going to happen.
Ben Crane. There's been a lot of those this year.
Yeah, there have. Abraham Answer a couple times.
And that's because of all the great information out here. Just to tie that in, it's a lot easier now to see, wow, this guy's gaining 10 strokes a week. It's like, yes, and that's very useful. Yeah. But let's not keep it, you have to keep it within reason of who the guy is.
This guy just came in 5th place at the Corrales Punta Cana. He must be he's a lock this week at,
Romo, like 20 shots. He's got to be an absolute boss.
He's first round leader at the U.S. Open bet. It's definitely there. Also, what's up, Vots? What's up, Carl? We got some buddies in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, I think though, just we're not going to get out of here in a little while. We definitely want to, whether in Slack or on Twitter, if you have ideas for what you'd like to see with the show, we are certainly open for it. We're going to have 5 days. Hour long. That's a lot of time to fill content. We know what we want to talk about, with the sports and whatnot. But if there's something you don't see in the industry and you say, I watch these shows, I love it, but the one thing I'd love to be able to have a Q&A, or I want to hear Ben talk about outrageous animal scenarios. I'm sure that's at the top of everybody's list. Let us know.
But here's the thing. If you guys don't give us stuff, it's going to be because it's the top of my list. So I'm just going to ask Ben ridiculous animal questions.
Yeah, I guess I should have done it that way, more as a threat.
Tuned out by now? Are we good?
yeah, I think we've been cut off the air a while ago. But yeah, if you don't give us ideas, we're going to be forced to make our own, and then you'll be forced to listen to me talk about gambling on horses and other things of that nature. But no, I do think that we want to make it not just another show where we're talking about plays and all that. We're going to have some of that. We're going to have obviously ones where we're focused on that when it's a big slate, and we need to do that, of course. But at the same time, we want to keep it a little lively. So yeah,
I 100% with you.
Just to go back to golf real quick, you haven't built yet, right?
I haven't built, no. Okay. I do have there's a few plays that, I mean, is Russell Henley going to be 3% owned? Like, why is he 6,800 all the time? Like,
he's not. He's 9,400 occasionally, and then he's back. I don't know.
He's getting the Charles Howell, but he's like a way better player than Charles. I don't know. He's a real, like, Russell Henley's a real player. Is he going to be 2% owned at 6,800? Because I'm going to play like 40. Already, but
I would assume that he will be sub 10. We'll obviously update that tonight, because that's a guy I will say. Russell Henley's annoying, but I tend to get him right. I like him. I like the way he plays. Don't know how much I'm into it here. Having said that, what you just talked about, he's the kind of guy, if he's going to be 5% at that price, I'll probably take 15% on principal, take my 3x leverage, and move on. it's just it's bizarre to see him sub 7K and not popular. So that's the range, though. I don't know what to do right at 7K. Very confused.
Yeah. There's one other guy down here. Can you have an idea who it is? Because it's a guy I've had a poor relationship with over the years. He's often chalk and often quite a bit more expensive, and then shreds in that situation. I've been playing him a lot lately, and he stinks. His name is Alex Noren. He's 7,300 right now.
Alex Noren last week was on the short list of guys I was certain were going to play well.
Yeah. Same.
Spoiler alert, didn't play well. Very bad.
Well,
he's playing so bad that I kind of feel like I have to cope. I mean, his irons are completely in shambles, and that's a red flag, not only because you never want to see that, but that's not him. Like, it's not like, oh, well, it's like when Hideki had that. That's the best thing he's got. So I don't know what to do. I can't devote any meaningful ownership to him. It's sad. I really thought this was going to be a sneaky spot. I thought he might be a dark horse to like get hot in the FedEx Cup and make a run at it.
Yeah, and he's got. I mean, the problem for me is he's going to be 4, 5, 6% owned, and I can't not get over that, right? You know, like he's a real player at 7,300 at that cheap. Like, I don't know. Yeah, he might. I mean, he might just be screwed, but there's no way I don't play 15%.
I'm not sure I'm getting there.
Like I did last week, but
and I like Noren. I'm a Noren guy. I'd rather just Peter Uihlein, 0.1% owned. Hey, he's from your area. He's a Boston guy, I think. He's definitely from Massachusetts, like Keegs.
Wicked. So is Scott Stallings.
That's got to raise his rover. Yeah, I don't know. I know what you're saying with Noren. I think for me, he's kind of crossed the threshold of like, it's like Brennan Steele. We were talking about this, and for me, he's just, there's something not right. Having said that, when they're that low, you can easily make the case because you don't need to hitch your wagons to it. If you can get over with 12% Noren and he gets cut, it's not great, but your week is not over. Whereas if a guy's 28% and you're like, I really want to have, if you get that wrong, you could have a serious problem.
What if I play him on my 888 teams though? That could be a serious problem.
It could be a serious problem, but again, and we were talking about this earlier, I tend to advocate that because if you do that and you get it right, you're one of like 7 people who have him.
Yeah.
Like as great as it is to play a 1%er in the millie, even if you get that right, it's you and 4,000 of your friends. Like, that's great. But it's nice in a smaller field where you can be the only person, like with maybe not this week because 6 of 6 isn't real, but like there are weeks if you have a sub 1%er, you're the only 6 of 6 with that guy. And you know that if, say you hit lightning in a bottle and he wins, you're probably going to do better than min cashing,
Yeah. There were a couple weeks in the pressure putt where I think that Ponta and I were the only people that had Danny Lee on our teams. And
there's a reason for that.
He missed the cut by 7 strokes, but
there's a reason for that. Is he's still alive, right?
I don't know, probably. But he's a rover poster child generally. He hasn't been this year, but he's one of those guys that's like all over the damn place. It's again, sorry, I'm bringing back a very familiar analogy if you listen to the show often, but it's the Tyreek Hill thing, right? This guy's a psycho. You want to play him when he's barely owned. You don't want to play him when he's chalk because the range of outcomes is so big. Chalk Danny Lee, like he was all last summer, is a freaking disaster. Like, you do not want any part of that. But those kind of guys that have the crazy finishes mixed with the just absolute crap, you want them when these are the high variance players. You want them at low ownership. You want to run to the hills when they're high ownership.
Now, he doesn't even have high upside anymore. That's what's brought his rover down. But yeah, absolutely. And it makes sense if you really step back and think about it. If a guy has that big of blow up risk, then when people have concentrated on him, you're willing to say, wow, if I can take out 20% of the field with this dude, I'm willing to, swerve. If you're saying, wow, only 1% of the people have this guy and I can be miles ahead of the field, worthwhile risk. And it's important to kind of identify those guys. I like to, we'll talk about more and more as people, hopefully check out the show. They'll get a feel for like how we do build on a macro level. I kind of do like to build. I know it's a week to week thing, but I kind of build in clusters. Like I will say, you know what, I like the way this guy's playing. I'm going to play him. And I kind of know in the back of my mind, unless something drastic happens, I'm going to play him for multiple weeks. This is in golf in particular, because it's really hard to pinpoint. There have been many times where I've loved the guy, didn't work. If you jump right off and then the next week you get the performance you thought you were going to get, then what? Sometimes you have to say, you know what? I think my process is good here. I'm going to stick with him for 2 weeks. In Rory's case, 6 years, apparently. Just keep playing him and eventually he will play good. But I don't think you have to jump week to week, kind of like whack-a-mole. That's just too hard. There's too much variance in a sport like golf.
Yep, totally with you. And then we did have the PGA ownership projections just come out.
Ooh.
At Osmo. Let's take a look here. So
I wonder what Rahm is.
Guess what place in ownership Rahm is?
Well, I'm gonna have to bias that because you asked me. 4th.
1.
What? I know.
Yeah. I don't see that happening either. But 24.2% for Rahm, 23.9% for Finau, Fleetwood at 20%, DJ
Rose
18.9.
Okay.
No. Brooks is low. Brooks is going to be higher than that. JT will be higher than that.
Where's Peter Uline? 0%.
There's some interesting ones. Tom Hoge is 0.4%. That guy's terrible. That's a joke. Don't play Tom Hoge ever. Sorry, Carl. No offense.
It's true.
Yeah, Kevin Chappell is projecting around 2%. I buy that, and I would like to play him at that ownership. UE 2.3.
Yeah, there's going to be
Noren 5.4.
Obviously, to tease our show that we're going to have in 5 hours. What I plan to do, and I know you do, is we're going to look at some of this stuff, gather the information, and then that's what that show is really about. I think that I can get leverage in these spots. I built my lineups this way. I went chalk here, but I balanced it out with a couple guys that I know are going to make me different. Because you got to build for 6 guys. It's not just if the team doesn't flow correctly, you're not going to get the outcome. You're already behind the 8 ball. I really do think that, golf, of course, you need the results, but you can start your week ahead or behind the curve.
Yes. There is exactly. And one of the funnier things is everyone losing their mind at 9 a.m. on Thursday morning when their guy didn't birdie the first par 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
That is hysterical. I love nothing more than watching some wacky tilt, as long as it's in good fun. People that take that shit seriously need to chill out. But there is a big part of the game that you can evaluate your ownership game very early. Like you can be happy about how the week, try not to be results oriented, right? That's what we do. The result you're interested in is how did I do compared to the field ownership wise? And you can say right off the bat, did I do my job this week? Because there are weeks where I look at the ownership and I look at my exposure and I'm like, man, I raked myself already. And sometimes I've won a lot of money on those weeks, but I got lucky. I think it's very important to, shortly after right at lock, when you start looking at ownerships, you can have a good idea of where you should be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we usually talk on Thursday mornings, and I'm the same way. There are so many times where I'm just like, this is not what I want. And then on the other side, it's not only, do you like it? It's, wow, this is perfect because the avenue I wanted was this. I knew that if I got Rory right, I'm going to get paid off. And with the leverage that I have now, I have that. You just want to, as best you can, obviously, there's always a couple surprises. Make the blueprint, visualize your path to how is this going to work? And you want it to be correct. And you say, wow, okay, this is great. If these two guys who I'm fading get cut, okay, this is good. But if you're in, you don't know how many times I have seen a guy, someone owns 20% of a guy, he's 35% owned in the tournament, and he's doing bad, and they're freaking out, and it's just like, well, think about this conceptually. Like, it's more about your.
I'm not going to think about this conceptually. I'm going to freak out because he's not getting it done right now.
Like, it's all in relation to the field. So you just want to know. Sometimes I own a guy with higher ownership, raw ownership, but someone else is more important just because they're 2% owned. And I know that somehow I ended up on 60% of them like an idiot. But you can certainly gauge your lineups before the results. And I do think that's smart because once the birdies start flying, it gets hard to look at it objectively.
Oh yeah. It's tough. There's not, and whatever, it's golf. There's nothing more tilting than having your guy have 9 feet left for a birdie putt for streak. Like that is the most frustrating situation to be in.
0 yards to hole on the first shot, and you're just like, oh, he hit it out of bounds.
Yeah, or shot tracker trolls. Those are very intense.
The best,
especially when there's an actual like drivable. This par 4 is like 350 this week. There is one. I don't know if that's quite drivable, but it's easier than one of the par 5s if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there's a long par 5. So.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Yeah, this was fun. Hopefully we get a second show. We'll let everyone know in Slack if they're just like, sorry, this was horrible.
We'll probably get tonight. I think. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. Tomorrow we'll see what happens.
Take it one show at a time.
Yeah, do a little preview of our football teams, and
that's the way I live. Yeah, tomorrow we're gonna talk some NFL. We'll, in addition, I'm gonna talk a little about what I thought about the college football tonight. Talk about a little college football for Saturday.
We will have golf going live to like freak out and stuff with everyone. Yep. Hopefully we get the 9-foot putt for streak from one of our guys that we have to sweat on air, and you can see what it's really like. I mean, you guys know what it's like. It's DFS. It's the best. It's the best. That's why we like it. Well, great talk, Ben. Josh, thank you very much for producing, sir. We promise we will figure this out eventually, assuming you decide to keep us around. This has been the very first From A to B on awesomemode.com. We're excited to be here, and we will hopefully be around for a while. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Catch you tonight on the 9 p.m. Eastern time. Sorry. This is also something I'm really bad at, is wrapping up shows.
I love it.
9 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. Pacific time. It will still be light for me. We will have the late night golf show, the pre-lock, where we really get into it a little bit more. Okay, we're actually going to leave this time. Thank you very much for listening. Talk to you soon.